Welcome to Make a Difference with Phil Martelli. I am Jared Phillips, and we got to jump right into it, Phil. Some big college hoops news that we alluded to a few weeks ago with a lot of the fallout with this current era of NIL basketball. And it's some sad news, but it's something that I feel like we need to address and talk about right off the rip.
Sure. And I think you start with the idea that change is not necessarily good or bad, but what it must do is create conversation, give you time to think and reflect. And the coaching profession is dealing with change, as exemplified by another resignation in the coaching ranks, Leonard Hamilton at Florida State. Mike Jensen wrote a terrific article about Leonard's time while he was a college student. He lived in South Philadelphia, worked locally, and played not in gyms all over South Philly, but playgrounds all over South Philly. And he remembers that fondly and talks about it in that article by Mike Jensen. The immediate questions are, did this have to do with NIL? Did it have to do with the lawsuit brought by players who were told or heard certain dollar figures? Without inside information, I believe that this is an example. Leonard's resignation is an example of the changing landscape. Coaches and administrators are trying to change their mindset, are going to have to change their mindset. Will Leonard Hamilton be the last? No. Just like Tony Bennett or Jim Larinaga, or on and on and on. We do have to recognize this. Coaching still allows us to wear sneakers to work. And we will still have work responsibilities, which is change lives and win, but changing lives. The business of the business has changed and will continue to change. No answers here, but a plea that we all think and discuss all aspects of this change. Leonard Hamilton put his heart and soul into coaching, and walking away is just a change in life for him. And it's a change in life for the landscape. So let's just hang in there. No woe is me. Let's discuss so that we can make it better for everybody, the fan experience, the players, their families, and the coaches.
I think you hit the nail on the head there, right? Because you said change is not necessarily good or bad. The changes we've seen in this game over the past few years, there's a lot of net positives. There's a lot of good things that have come out of it. But I think one thing we talked about a few weeks ago is demanding some level of transparency on both ends, making sure people are getting the right opportunities, the right deals, and the right expectations are set for everybody.
The right information.
Exactly.
Right.
So that this doesn't come about again. And there could be myriad reasons for Leonard stepping down. And clearly the first thing that everyone's going to think of is the current lawsuit and how things are kind of shaping up down there. But the reality is there could be so many factors at play that all tie into it. I'm sure it's part of it, but there's too much going on in the game and in the landscape to just allow us to, I would think, I don't know, jump to any conclusions.
Right. You just can't go rambling along, and the discussion and thought is needed.
Still plenty of work to do.
Sure.
And someone who is really doing a lot of work in that space.
That's why I'm so excited. It kind of blends together when we get to our guest segment today.
Yeah, and I think, this is sad news with Leonard Hamilton, but we have someone that is really, I think, advancing that space, the NIL space for college hoops in such a positive way. I can't wait to highlight what he's doing. A terrific guest coming up in just a moment who we will talk about, but of course, the Martelli Minute.
Martelli Minute. Status Solutions Network is our sponsor. They are committed to making a difference by providing Alicia Law compliant safety technology to schools through a grant of use, ensuring that financial barriers never stand between students and proper safety. Each community has the power to create real change. Learn more at statussolutions.com. And again, we can't thank Status Solutions for their sponsorship. They've been with us from day one. We appreciate them always. Statussolutions.com. Let's make all of our schools as safe as possible for the young people so that they can focus on education. The Martelli Minute. Phil_Martelli on Instagram every morning at 6:30 Eastern time.
On the dot.
We have a number of people. Well, I've been a little bit lax, but it's close. All right, here's the first one. Never take for granted the opportunity to serve others. Your efforts matter. Teachers, coaches, community leaders, there you are. Never take it for granted that your efforts matter, right? There's a lot of opportunities to serve others. Second one, it's a great feeling to give of yourself, to be a part of something bigger than yourself. We is greater than me. Sometimes the best way to help others is to get out of their way. You know, today we have a lot of like, I can do that for you. I think we should change that. I can do that with you. Or I can watch you do that. But it doesn't always have to be, I can do that. Right? And so many parents are so helpful and so caring and so loving that we cross that line. Sometimes you let the other person figure it out and they're better for it. And then the last one, slow down. Slow down. Take your time. Rest is better than rush. Don't rush into things. Take a moment, take a breath, and then you can move forward. 4 Martelli minutes, because this is a big week in Philadelphia.
It's quite a big week. We're going to do some reflecting on that in just a little bit, but we can't let our guests wait any longer. I'm excited about this intro. You've been knocking him out of the park, and he's got quite the resume.
And that's where I'm starting. But as I was doing it, I thought, these are just words. So what did I write down? A positive social influencer. Now, I've known Seth Berger so long that there was no such thing as a social influencer when our friendship started. But I know a positive social influencer when I see it. That's on his resume. And1 co-founder. Westtown successful high school basketball coach. The Players Era tournament director, founder, creator. Yeah, that's all a resume. That's not what Seth Berger is, though. Seth Berger is using this game of basketball to make others' lives better. The greatest compliment I can pay as you travel in basketball circles, here's what you will always hear. Seth Berger is a good man. You cannot be paid a higher compliment. And I am so delighted to not only be joined by my friend Seth Berger, but a good man in Seth Berger. Seth, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate you having me, and sincerely appreciate the intro. It was awesome.
Seth, we'd like to start this segment with your journey. How and where, and here you are now, this positive force, not just in the basketball community, but in the school community at Westtown. How did Seth Berger get here?
All kidding aside, it goes back to the first day I fell in love with the game of basketball. I came to the game relatively late in today's world. I was 11 at a camp, and I can still see the red, white, and blue net and hear the ball bouncing on the asphalt. And that summer, I just fell in love with the game of basketball and have not been able to leave it now 46 years later. Played high school ball, played a year of JV ball in college. When I was in grad school at Wharton getting an MBA, I spent probably 3 or 4 hours a day playing pickup in the gym, usually an hour or two playing trumpet and maybe 30 minutes studying. I wasn't the best grad student there was. And when I was leaving, graduating from Wharton, I was faced with the decision as to whether to try to pursue a career in investment banking or to try to start a t-shirt company in the game of basketball. What we were doing with And1 in 93 was basically creating a brand for anyone that played basketball and looked in the mirror and saw a basketball player at any level to be able to identify as such. And I still will maintain that I'm the best point guard never to be drafted out of New York City. And until I was 46, I probably looked in the mirror and still saw a basketball player. So with And1, we made a difference in that way. And we also donated millions of dollars to youth-based charities. And then from there, sold And1 and got to do really what's been my life's passion, which is be the head coach at the Westtown School, the boys basketball team. And the two things that I've always wanted to do with my life are have fun and make a difference. If an activity has both have fun and make a difference, you will find me doing it as much as I can. If it is one or the other, I'll do it. And if it has neither, you won't find me doing it. So that's really the journey. And then about 1.5 years ago, actually, my sons and I came up with the idea of Players Era when one of them was being hit up by an NIL agent for a very little bit amount of money to try to get his rights. And we realized that we were entering this new world in college basketball where, credit to Charlie Baker, he's taken the handcuffs off and has allowed a lot of parties to help get players paid for their name, image, and likeness. And so that was the origin of Players Era. Again, trying to make a difference in the game that I love so much and have fun doing it.
Seth, the And1 story, I lived it because we offered those items at our camp, and I watched this grow and I recognize it. Take us to the very first meeting, the And1 concept, from first meeting to basically the top of the sport, particularly in summer basketball.
Yep. It was actually in Chicago. So I graduated in May of 93, and we had started, two partners and I had started the And1 Database Marketing Club. And this is actually the paper that I wrote in my second year of grad school. It's the only good grade I got. And I pursued this business.
By the way, it was Wharton.
Yeah,
I hope
it was
you know
Wharton.
this is that.
Yeah,
But listen,
this is a little
facing here. He could be
Here's-
it was Wharton.
It was, but here's what I realized on my second day at Wharton. I could either, back then it was distinguished, high pass, and no credit was the grading system. And I could either work as hard as I possibly could in the classroom, and I still would only pass my classes, or I could do the least amount of work necessary and still pass my classes so I could spend my time hooping. And I chose option B. But so we had decided to do this database business where we were going to try to create this database and sell the names of thousands of millions of basketball players to Nike and Foot Locker and Reebok. My partners and I were at a trade show. We were probably the youngest people at the trade show. And everyone we talked to in the brand said, this is a horrendous idea. This idea stinks. We don't need it. We already have the names of these consumers and we'll never pay you for it. And as we were walking around the show, there were a number of other small basketball apparel brands that were popping up. And this idea that this niche existed in the footwear and apparel space was just kind of popping up. So we literally looked at it, at all the stuff, and I was like, their gear isn't great. Like, it's cool, but it's not super unique. And I would still choose to wear Nike instead of any of those brands as a ball player. So we were actually in a pizza place in Chicago, And we decided to take our pitch books, we threw them in the trash, and we started writing slogans on the napkins of the pizza place. And so, the pizza place napkins that fold
Yes.
over. My partner, Jay Gilbert, Tom Austin was our third partner. Tom came up with most of the really good slogans. In fact, he still has those napkins framed
Wow.
in his home. And we literally had 15 or 20 slogans. Like I said, Tommy came up with most of the best ones. And we decided on the drive back home from Chicago to Philly in my Honda Civic hatchback to decide to pursue the footwear and apparel business. And that was basically the genesis of And1. Was like, we think we understand the consumer better because we are the consumer. At the time, we were 25, and 21 years old and all hooped all the time. So we just chose to kind of embark on the journey then. And then for the first 6 years of the business, we got so lucky. I mean, we worked really hard and we had an amazing team of people. Like, my thing was bringing people that are better than me at every step and then let them do their thing. Just similar to how I coach. I try to identify really talented players, give them a structure, and then let them play freely. It's the same mantra I had as a CEO. So I wanted to bring in really talented people and then let them go. And we had amazing teammates who really carried our business. And for the first 6 years, we got so lucky. Like, everything went right that could have gone right and nothing went wrong, from, signing Latrell Sprewell when he was in Golden State. Then he gets traded to the Knicks, and then they go to the NBA Finals when we run a big TV commercial. Our business tripled in the 18 months following that. It was just crazy amount of luck. And then we hit a little bit of blip between year 6 and 8, and then turned it back around and sold the business in year 12 in 2005. And I was 36 at the time. And the hardest thing about selling And1 was not that I wasn't going to be selling t-shirts or sneakers anymore. We had actually 103 NBA ball players in our shoes when we sold the company. And obviously the mixtape tour had a huge impact in the basketball community and changed the way a lot of kids played the game and coaches saw the game. It was leaving the people. Like, you spend your time, most of your daily lives, with the people with whom you work. And we had so many people at And1 had really become a family to each other. And so I knew that when we sold the business, most of those people I would not see for most of my life. And that the hardest thing about choosing to sell And1 was that these people that I loved and loved coming in to see every day, I knew that part of my life was over.
Seth, I just have to, I guess, say on behalf of pretty much every hooper that grew up in the 90s and early 2000s, we just want to thank you for creating one of the most iconic basketball brands of all time. I mean, nowadays, those original slogans that you guys came up with, I think you said Tom came up with most of them. I mean, they're goldmine. If you can stumble upon one of those original shirts nowadays, it's like, oh, you want to frame it. Like, they were just so awesome and so iconic to the game of basketball in that era. I mean, really, thank you, because it was what an unbelievable brand, and it's still, continuing and kicking to this day. But man, I mean, when you guys started and what you built was truly incredible. I know this isn't a question. I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Jared. Appreciate you, my man.
Seth, love of the game is evident. How has that love of the game allowed you to make a difference at Westtown?
Yeah. In between undergrad and grad school, I worked for 2 years on Capitol Hill. I was the legislative director to Harold Ford Sr. When I went down to DC, I thought I was going to try to make a career in politics. And I quickly realized that unless you come from real money, that in politics, you'll either be dirty or broke. And so after about a year, I was like, I'm not going to have a career in politics because I don't want to be either of those things, but I still want to make a difference. When I got to grad school, I realized that, when I went back to grad school, I still thought I would pursue public policy in some way because I really wanted to be focused on making a difference. I realized that the difference that I'd like to make is for people one-on-one. Mm-hmm. And I'm, interestingly, I'm a socially aware introvert is the term. You put me in a room with 20 people and I actually get pretty uncomfortable, and afterwards I'm tired. But if I have a lunch with one person or dinner with two people and can have an impact, that's where I want to live. So coaching at Westtown is really the most fun way in the world I can make a difference. And I'm doing it in a community in which I believe so much. So Westtown, my kids went there from pre-kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. It's this really microcosm of the world. 20% of our student body is international, 25% students of color, 50% out of state. Quaker school that everyone, in my opinion, has an opportunity to shine in this community. And so coaching there has enabled me to mentor and be involved with young men who are all probably bright enough to go to Ivy League schools without basketball. And yet we share this amazing love of the game. And so when we come into the gym, we're totally committed to each other. Our slogan in And1 is "I am for you." So every kid, when they come in that gym, I am for what is best for them, even at the expense of me. What that means from a coaching perspective is during games, 2 words that my kids won't hear is bad shot. We'll deal with expected value in practice and in film session, but in the game, I want my players to play freely. And sometimes our kids will take shots that you're like, wow, that was kind of a stretch. And my thing is, if those kids don't take those shots in games that are stretch shots now, they don't become part of their package tomorrow, and they'll never reach their highest level. So for me, coaching basketball at Westtown is identifying kids who can be great and helping them to be that. And then through the lessons of be a great teammate, play as hard as you can, die empty at the end of the game and at the end of the practice and at the end of the season. If we can help those kids learn these lessons every day, then they're going to go make differences for everyone that they encounter throughout the rest of their lives. And so I'm finishing my 20th year as a coach. I can't believe it's been this long, and 18th year as head coach at the Westtown School. And my life plan is basically to coach until they tell me I shouldn't be coaching anymore. Then I'll stay a few years after that. And then eventually, after I pass, have my ashes be cremated in the lake on Westtown's campus. And so that if and when young men come down to the lake with their girlfriends and they should be at study hall, my ghost can rise up and I can say, get back up to the study hall.
Seth, the landscape, the world, the college basketball world has changed. And the Players Era tournament, that's going to be at the forefront of this change. Same idea. And1 car ride from Chicago to Philadelphia. The Players Era tournament, from idea to a reality. Give us that story, please.
Sure. Well, obviously it involves Steve Rosenberry, affectionately known as Rosie, our mutual super close friend. So I was on vacation. I'd actually just come back from the Bucknell trip to Italy with my son Quinn and my wife, and I was having dinner down in Delaware, a family vacation. It was just actually TJ, who's at Lafayette, and Cole, my oldest son, who played golf at Lafayette as well. So TJ shows me a DM on Instagram from an agent that basically says, for $1,000, give me your NIL rights and I can help you get paid, but I guarantee nothing. He showed me and he said, it's ridiculous, right? That is like an automatic no. I'm like, it's an automatic no. As we started talking, the first thought was, credit to Charlie Baker. Like, he didn't need to come in to try to fix this, but Mr. Baker played JV basketball at Harvard and was also reelected as a Republican governor in Massachusetts, a blue state with 66% of the popular vote. So that tells me about Mr. Baker. Went to Harvard, really smart. Played JV basketball as someone who played JV ball in college. You got to love basketball to play JV basketball in college, and can find common sense solutions. So the first thing we said is credit to him. He's kind of opened up the opportunity for players in a way that the NCAA had been fighting for decades. But everyone was still kind of thinking about this in the old model. And in my opinion, the old model was institution first, coach second, player third. And what I mean by that is when coaches put together their schedule, they work with their athletic directors. The athletic directors got to sell tickets. They got to hit budgets. The coach has to win enough games so he gets to stay employed. And then the third group is the players. The players want to play against the best competition. It's how they have the most fun and become the best players they can be and also get paid. And our thought is moving forward, that's actually going to have to be reversed. And the college basketball programs that are successful tomorrow will be the ones that think about their schedule as first and foremost way to serve their players, second way to serve their coach, and third, serve the institution. So our thought with Players Era was, and this was a reach, if we guaranteed each team $1 million in name, image, and likeness for events unrelated to the games, and we had to stay with the NCAA guidelines, so you can't pay the players to play, you pay the players for social media activities and for marketing activities, and that's what we did. Could we get a roster of teams that were good enough to create a compelling event? And obviously, the first year was amazing. We had 8 great teams. We got incredibly lucky. Other than the first game when San Diego State won by, I think, 20, every game I looked up into 2 minutes, it was a one-possession game. Amazing Oregon, tournament victory, basically a putback. And Alabama also almost tied it, missed it by like 0.2 seconds. So the first event was amazing. You look at next year for 2025, we have 4 of the current top 5 teams in the country committed to playing in our event. And I think it's 12 of the top 20. But Players Era, the tournament, is really the start of Players Era, the brand, and how can we make a difference for college basketball players throughout their seasons and in some cases in their off seasons. So, for example, we're launching the Players Era transfer platform, and it'll be a technological solution, a website and an app that enables kids to get truly informed about their value before deciding whether to transfer. Like right now, if an agent tells the kid to transfer, let's say the kid is making $25,000 at a low major school, has a full scholarship, and he's the 6th man. He's in a great situation that if he stays, he'll start the next year and have a really nice career. And he tells the kid, I can get you $100,000 if you go in the portal. The kid listens, goes in the portal. Lo and behold, the agent actually didn't have $100,000 for him. The kid has now walked and left his scholarship, a great situation with a coach who believes in him, and ends up oftentimes out of luck. So what we're trying to do is help kids get informed before they go into the portal. And then we're also trying to help coaches because we're in our platform, everyone will see everyone's values. So, if you're at Georgetown, for example, and we're just talking about Thomas Sorber, I think he's going to be fine with or without our platform. But if you look at Malik Mack, right? If Malik Mack's agent goes to Coach Cooley and says, yeah, I got 6 offers at $600,000. If you want Malik to stay, you got to pay him $700 or $750. Coach Cooley can go on our platform and see, actually, I don't see those offers. I see 3 at 4 and 2 at 5 or whatever it might be. So I think we can actually also help coaches retain their rosters by giving them information about what the actual values their kids are getting in the market. So I think with the Players Era transfer platform, we're going to help coaches and players create some rationality to the system that's just gotten nuts. And ultimately, I think some players are benefiting, but most players are actually losing, and coaches are certainly losing. So we got to try to help this process. And then we're also trying to create ways for players to get paid for their name, image, and likeness outside of the Players Era tournament. So we're trying to put some stuff together around the NCAA tournament, around conference tournaments, and throughout the rest of their kids' seasons. And we think with our roster of now 18 Players Era men's teams and 4 women's teams, we've got a great group of teams that offer real value to brand partners. And so we're moving forward on that as well. And I think what's really interesting, Phil, you said something in your opening. I think what's happening in college basketball is no different than the rest of society. And what I mean by that is this. Technology is significantly changing the rate of change. And because of technology and so many different aspects of it, when something changes today, the next change is actually going to happen faster. And then the next change will actually happen faster than that. And so I don't think college basketball is getting to its next destination, if you will. I think we're going to get to a next step. And then because of technology and transparency, the next step's going to come faster, and the next step's going to come faster. And what we at Players Era want to be thinking about all the time is how do we help the players the most? How can we put the players first and anticipate the changes so we can put the players in the best situations? And also as a coach, like I said, I've been a coach 20 years. Some of my best friends are college coaches. They're dealing with a situation and they need some help too. So how do we help the coaches through Players Era as well?
There's two things here. The next question was, what is next as a visionary? And we just had a masterclass in what is coming next. And then on a personal side, Seth, I don't know if I've ever talked to you about this, but I have talked with a small group of people. Any number of times when I was approached, and I'll give you this example, Seth, when I was approached about a chip in the basketball that would figure out a kid's shot. And people would come and say, would you like to invest in this? And I would be, no. Not because I was conservative, but because you already have that. I want to invest in what's next, right? Not what's now, but tell me what's next. And it sounds to me, Seth, like that's where we are. What's next? I have this example. The WNBA, all-time high. They hit it here. They hit it there. So what was next? They created a 3-on-3 league. Now, they're not getting 10,000 people, but they're getting 1,000 people to watch the game. They must have a television contract. And that's the visionary that Seth is. So, Seth, thank you for sharing your vision. But now I need to know this one, and I have to read this. The 76ers Innovation Entrepreneurs Program. Come on, man. Tell us more. Tell us more.
Yeah. So I have two day jobs, actually, Players Era, and I'm also the managing director of Potential Capital. Potential Capital started in 2016 as the Sixers Innovation Lab when Scott O'Neil, my dear friend, who is the president of the Sixers, called me. I was actually semi-retired at the point. And he said, hey, I'm starting an innovation lab. Do you want to come run it? As you probably can surmise from my experience at Wharton, I read the Wall Street Journal 2 days in my life, and then I realized there's nothing in the paper that I was very interested in, so I stopped reading the Wall Street Journal. So I had to say to Scott, that sounds great, but I don't know what an innovation lab is. And he said, well, it's like an incubator, and we invest in companies, and we think we have a lot of resources through the Harris Bush Sports and Entertainment Network that can help companies grow. And do you want to run it? And I said, wow, that sounds really cool. Like I get to mentor young entrepreneurs and we get to invest in their businesses. I still get to coach, right? He said, yeah. I said, I only need you like 2 days a week. And I said, Scott, like everyone at the Sixers wears suit and tie. The last one I bought was in 99. You cool? I'm going to wear a t-shirt and shorts to work. He's like, yeah, whatever you want. So sometimes I'd get dressed up and put on jeans and not t-shirts and shorts. And so that was the beginning of what's turned into Potential Capital. And Josh Harris, David Blitzer, and Scott gave me an amazing opportunity to have a effectively third career as a venture capitalist. We've invested in about 30. We're on our second fund. We have about $33 million under management. We've invested in about 35 companies, had a couple exits. And Phil, the formula is the same, which is when we're making a decision about whether to invest, sure, I want to know about the business, but the businesses are usually self-explanatory. What I really want to know about is the people. I'll give you an example. One of our most successful investments is in a company named Highlight. Their website is letshighlight.com. It's a consumer research company. I don't know much about consumer research at all. The young woman who started it is Dana Kim. She was in her second year of Wharton when we first met her. Her idea was for a standalone, basically kiosk that I didn't think was great. She had gone from a public school to Columbia, had a 3.84 GPA when she was at Columbia while maintaining a full-time job. And I was like, oh, this person's pretty impressive. But what sold me on investing in Dana was this. And I would always ask kids, young people, who they were as kids. Who were you in high school? That's what really I want to know. Parents, Korean immigrants. The mom was a doctor and the dad was a house husband. And the dad made a decision when they had kids that it was best for his family, for his wife to make the money, and for him to stay home and raise the kids. And I said to my business partner, Ryan Truitt, at Potential Capital, I said, if she sees the example of someone putting aside his ego to make such a rational and logical decision, she's going to be a great CEO because she's going to make logical and rational decisions. And that's ultimately what great business people do, is make great decisions. And so that's what sold me on Dana. And we've invested in every round of her company. And so I love it because it's the same thing. I'm trying to help young people. Usually they're young people as CEOs and founders be their best in business and making a difference that way.
All right, Seth, back to the gym, or maybe not to the gym, because I know that your impact at Westtown goes beyond the gym. So I need you to brag. It's not your nature, but I need you to tell us your greatest success story at Westtown, where you know you made a difference.
I'll tell you this. I've been, I think this one's actually relatively easy. I've been doing this for 18 years. Over that time period, there are 2 kids that I've coached over 18 years. Sorry, I should say this. About 30 kids that received Division I scholarships. We've got 4 kids who were lottery picks, 5 kids who played in the league. I think we currently have about 10 guys playing overseas. So a lot of guys have had successful careers on the court and still are having. But actually our greatest success, I think, is this. Over 18 years, there are only 2 kids that I've coached who have not graduated from college if they didn't leave the NBA early. One got to college and decided it was not for him. And one never went to college because he's having an incredibly successful career as a marketer. And so what I always tell kids when they come visit Westtown is, you're coming to Westtown because you're smart enough that if you tear your knee up twice, you're not going to have a career as a pro, and you're going to have a career in business or politics or as a doctor or lawyer, whatever it might be. And the proof of that is that these young men go to college prepared as Division I athletes to manage their time successfully enough to graduate. And so that is, for me, the easiest difference we've made. And that for every kid's dream is the NBA. That's the plan A, but we're having them think about, prepare, and execute plan B.
Well, again, Mount Rushmore. Mount Rushmore guest is getting crowded.
We're running out of mountain to fill out this Mount Rushmore, man.
Seth, the last question. Who's made a difference in your life?
My wife is unbelievable. I met her at our 5th year reunion, and completely changed my life. Every day I wake up happy being married to her. And she's an amazing wife and mom. And so the other part of that is my kids. I have this great relationship with my 3 biological sons, and Phil, as you know, we have guardianship of 5 brothers from overseas. And so those 8 boys make a huge difference for me every day. I think the older I get, the more I appreciate each day, and the more I appreciate every minute I get to spend with the people I love. And that would be that group.
Seth, you've made a difference to me. You are truly a friend, and it may be weeks, sometimes months where I don't talk, but when I connect, you're making a difference.
Thank
And
you,
I speak
Phil.
for so many in the basketball community. Thank you for being our friend.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you. Appreciate having me on as well, Jared.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
you. Again, I just wonder where guys like him find the time. He said it himself. He's got 2 full-time jobs, runs a basketball program. I mean, uh, he casually slipped in there, 8 children he's looking after. I mean, it's just,
He's good.
fascinating.
He's really, really, really good people. Really good people. And I'm glad because the outside looking in, players here, it's like, well, this is just another money grab. But when you take in the whole of what they're going to do, they're making a difference in players' lives and they're making a difference in college basketball.
And for coaches as well, it's something we talked about at the top of the show is how do we get more transparency in the system? And he goes, "Oh yeah, we're working on it. We're working on it. Yeah, we're getting to it." Because that is truly the thing that is going to make this a much more seamless experience in college hoops and ideally college athletics as a whole.
No
So
question.
it's wonderful to hear that brilliant people like Seth are working on things like that too.
Caring people too.
Yeah,
Caring people.
people that care about the game.
Yeah, no question.
So that's and just you know, I you I would say you coached through it, but man, hearing the N1 origin story like that, that I felt that in my heart, man. I mean,
I know you did.
all the old T-shirts that I got to dig up somewhere in my room back at my dad's. I mean, jeez.
And the shorts that were 3 sizes too big.
Oh yeah.
I forgot about the mixtapes.
Oh,
That was legend.
I mean, just some of the most iconic hoops of all
Yes.
time. And uh and he's responsible. He and his buddies at a Warden are responsible for that, which is just so awesome to hear. And it's so funny to think about the number of, I guess, uh, it all comes back to Philadelphia. Like
Always does.
it's so many times, time and time again. It's so funny to hear that. But yeah, Seth, incredible. I mean, he's built a terrific program at Westtown, and it just continues to do great things with the 76ers, the Innovation Lab. It's unbelievable to hear.
And he's made a difference for us. Or make a difference. So thank you. We ready?
Where you been, Phil?
Thursday and Friday of last week, Georgetown Butler preparation was able to go to the practice at Georgetown. And can you imagine walking into the Georgetown practice facility and staring at you? And I don't know the size, but Big John Thompson's statue right in the center of the foyer. Had a picture taken with that one. After practice, drove back up 95 to see Bryant UMBC in a high scoring game, very entertaining, 92-86, while tracking Penn State, Ohio State in Rec Hall, where maybe Penn State should be playing all of their games,
We've talked about it.
right? I was tracking that game on the phone, watching the game live, and then thinking about the game I was going to broadcast on Friday night. Saturday, I was able to get home, uh, attend a funeral for a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful uh, great grandmother for my grandchildren. Pat Jeffrey's grandmother passed away, and then went to lunch with lifelong friends: Marie Wozniak, Janet Greeter, Katie Shields, Billy Luke, Brian Bing. And while there, because that's the way the world works, ran into Herb McGee's wonderful wife, Jerry, while having lunch. Sunday, came home. I was getting ready for my A10 trek that was going to take place on Sunday night. And I was able to go to a St. Mary Magdalene 5th and 6th grade quarterfinal game against St. Dorothy's. And as is wont, knew everybody in the crowd there and had a chance to connect. Monday, A10 Hoops Talk, Beyond the Paint. Listen to this lineup: a John Chaney show was put in the can, if that's what you call it. A A10 women's basketball success beyond the court was put into the can. An A10 men's basketball championship reflections with Bob McKillop and Keith Danbart. That was done. And then a preview of the A10, what is to come for the championship. And then back on the train. And I have to admit, I really like the train now, coming and going from DC and coming and going to New York.
You're a big public transit guy.
I'm starting to really work on that. And then all this time planning for what is ahead, which is when we finish today, another trip to Seton Hall for Seton Hall and Butler. That game will be on Wednesday night. So I've been a few places.
Busy guy, man. I'll tell you what, I will say, we got to shout out Brian really quick. I mean, the absolute tear that they were on in only their second year of the America East right now. I know we have a vested interest, but they look like
halfway through.
They look like one of the hottest mid-major teams in the country right now.
Yeah, halfway through, and they've and we don't want to minimize Penn State. I just sent a text to my son and said, good luck as they prepare to play this evening against Minnesota. And the road back is one step at a time. You don't get all the way back. So one step at a time, one step at a time. You'll have plenty of opportunities as you go in the back end of the Big Ten season. But where now? So as I leave here, Seton Hall and Butler on Wednesday night, back home Wednesday night, to fly out Thursday morning for catch this game. VCU at Dayton Friday night. Dayton practice Thursday, shoot-arounds and interviews on Friday. And you know what I'm going to hear? Go Dayton Flyers. That'll be in my sleep. Coming home early Saturday morning. Probably do some yard work Saturday and Sunday, because the weather's maybe going to start to.
You're unbelievable.
You're shaking
man.
your head and saying no to yard work?
Well, as long as you got it done by 6:40 on Sunday, I think you'll be fine.
You have something up?
I got something going on.
And all of Philadelphia has something going on. And the region. And before we get too far ahead, when we out to prayers and thoughts, and not lightly, the tragedy in Washington, D.C. last week with the two planes, and then the unbelievable occurrences in Northeast Philly, and not trying to be sunny in any way about it, but thank God it was the middle of the street and not the middle of the neighborhood with that unfortunate plane crash. So we're out there for everybody and thinking of everybody, and we'll get back to your Sunday plans because we have to talk about Monday. Monday, I'm going to visit St. Cyril's, St. Philomena's, an Independence Mission School. They're dedicating their middle school building to Doris and Jack McHugh. I am anxious to get back because they're holding the celebration in the gym where I grew up playing CYO basketball. So I will go back as a grateful alum to Doris and Jack McHugh and to the Independence Mission Schools for the invitation. So I guess you can fill us in now on what you have planned for the weekend.
Well, I think for the first time we were going to do where in the world is Jared Phillips, because
I'm with you.
I have something.
A lot of people yelling for it. I get a lot of texts, a lot of emails. They tell me that I dominated, and
I think people are a little more intrigued by where you're headed most weeks, but I think I got you beat this week, because on Sunday at 6:40 I will be seated in the Superdome to watch the Eagles take the Chiefs on in the Super Bowl, and it's going to be the best experience of my life. I really can't sugarcoat it. any better than that. I have a wonderful, wonderful, great friend. I'm gonna shout him out. Ben McWilliams, been working for the NFL Network for a long time, and he's pretty much hooking me up with the experience of a lifetime. And I gotta get your thoughts on this because I feel for the old man. I truly do. My good buddy offered me. He said, "Hey, I get 2 tickets. They're yours." This is before the Eagles. I had to sweat through a playoff run that was just flat out might have took years off my life realistically. But my first thought, I have 2 tickets to the Super Bowl. Who do I ask first? I
You
want
have
to
to
hear.
ask your father.
That's exactly where I went. That is exactly where I went. The biggest Eagles fan in the world. And can you believe he politely declined? This is the kind of man he is that all he could think of was, you're going to go down to New Orleans for the week. You don't want this old fart kind of, dragging you down. You want to have a good time. You want to party. And I said, of course, it's New Orleans. There's Bourbon Street. There's all these things. But I said, man, that's the one shot you got to see an Eagles Super Bowl. And his selflessness is just, I can't.
Good man.
He's a good,
Larry
good,
Phillips
good
is
man.
a good man.
And he's gonna be tuned in and listening. And I think I hope he's not kicking himself too much. He's a guy that he loves to be in that captain's chair in the middle of the living room, taking in every second of that game. But I gave him the chance, man. So you know who the biggest benefactor of that ends up being?
I can't imagine, but I'm going to guess it's one of your brothers.
It is the oldest, the big brother Jason, that gets the keys to probably the best best game he'll ever get to see in his life. And
if we're kind, his brother Josh, he kind of lives life in a different sphere. He might not even know there is a Super Bowl on Sunday.
I don't know. He'll be locked in. And we went to Vegas a couple years ago for the Eagles Raiders game. So Jason was due. Julian, well, he's a Burke College kid, so there was no way he was getting down there. But so he was like, man, if I had to think about it, if I knew the 2 options were on the table, I would have skipped Vegas. But just, man, so excited for that. Gonna be down there Wednesday to Monday, so making a trip of it. And I got nothing else to say about it. I just get down there in one piece and just enjoy the time. Never been to New Orleans, so if you've ever been down, I'll take any recommendations anyone has.
I have been there, and I'm only going to make one recommendation. Go to Bourbon Street once, and then you've been there, and
that's
it.
Yeah, I had a feeling as such, but
it really is. It's worth seeing because you have this vision of it, and then there's a lot going on there.
There's a lot going on, and most importantly, there's a football game going on. And I'll tell you what, if the Eagles don't get it done, I don't know if I'm coming back. So just letting you know, you might need a new co-host for the podcast if they don't.
Well, we still have time. We still have to dissect some film, and in these situations, you're facing Darth Vader.
Oh yeah,
right. I don't even know what that means because I've never seen those movies. But Darth Vader is Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, and
that's the Empire for sure.
It is
the new Empire. I mean, the original was Brady and Belichick, and now they kind of conquered that first dynasty. I mean, they won the next year anyway, but this is their chance to knock off another budding dynasty in the NFL. So I hope
they have lifted up. They have lifted up the area. I can't imagine the millions and millions and millions of dollars in gear. Everybody has Birds gear on. So for everybody. And for the schools, how about the schools already 2-hour delays?
Oh yeah, they know.
But my question is, but then what are you going to do on the day of the parade?
I'm going to be there. What do you mean?
I'm saying for schools.
Oh yeah, that school's canceled. School's canceled. I mean,
come on now, they're going to be going to school like June 30th.
I'll say this: I assume the statute of limitations have passed on this, but I played hooky on the day that the Phillies parade on Halloween in 08. So if you want to have a reasonable class, if you want kids in, or I say you just got to punt and you just
Or go virtual and believe that they're on Broad Street on their laptop. Right?
That's an option as well. But
see how I'm thinking now?
Yeah, I forgot we had a bit of a mailbag question that we had to get to this week because you brought up that you have not seen Star Wars, but it seems like you got the gist. You brought up Sopranos last week, and we got to know, who's your favorite Sopranos character?
Wow. Oh, Tony Soprano. Like, he was just like, close your eyes and say, what would that look like? And he was that to the nth degree.
It's
and had an opportunity. I don't know how long we're running here today, but I have a James Gandolfini story.
You have a James Gandolfini story?
You have never heard.
We have all the time in the world. Yeah.
In 2001 or 2, I took a phone call from Rutgers, and they wanted to meet with me to discuss their coaching opening. And I drove and I met with them at the Yardley Inn off of 95, knowing I was not taking a job. I just wanted to find out what was going on in the world in terms of salaries and benefits. And we were coming off of a solid year. We had a young point guard who I thought could develop into something. So Jameer was a freshman. I went to this meeting. We sat, we had a conversation, and I said, look, I'm not accepting a job. I have to go home, talk to my athletic director, my dear friend, Don DeJulia. I have to talk to my wife. They slid across a piece of paper, said, this is the salary offer. I nearly choked. And they said, if you come to campus, then we're going to have you meet with the president. And they had done their research. And we know that you are a Sopranos fan. James Gandolfini will come. You'll get a chance to meet him because he's a Rutgers grad.
A big Rutgers guy. Yeah.
Rutgers grad. Brain goes like this. I might take that interview, because if I could figure out a way to convince Gandolfini to get me just a walkthrough part on a Sopranos episode. They had just done an episode where the coach of the Giants was in the Italian restaurant, and I forget even who the coach was at the time. That's what I was thinking of. And then I shook myself off and came home, and I'm driving down 95, and I called Judy, said, how did it go? I said, this is the offer. And when I said the figure to her that they offered me, it was 3 times more than I was making at St. Joseph's at the time.
Oh my goodness gracious.
And she said, what did you think? And I said, it didn't move me. I nearly drove off the highway saying that to her. And I came, and I couldn't. And when I explained it to them, they were unbelievable. When I called later that night and said, I just can't leave Philadelphia. You're an hour away, but it would be like being 5 days away from Philadelphia. Fast forward, the next summer, we got invited to a casino in Atlantic City where they were having a meet and greet with the Sopranos cast. And as you walked through, you got to spend time with various cast members. And when I came upon Gandolfini, I said to him, we were supposed to meet. And he looked, he goes, what? I go, Rutgers. He goes, wait, you're that basketball coach? And I said, yeah, I am. He said, I don't know anything about basketball. And I said, I don't know anything about the mob, but I wanted to meet you. So that was my touch with Gandolfini.
I hope you got his name right when you met him. It's Gandolfini.
Gandolfini,
Yeah,
whatever.
I mean, that's incredible. I mean,
I did get it right because I didn't call him Tony,
yeah, that's a good point.
right?
Oh man, that was well worth it. Oh man, that's unbelievable though. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
That's
it
a lot of
was.
fun.
Yeah,
I was kind of putting you on the spot. I kind of felt like I didn't think you'd watch The Sopranos. I thought maybe you were just like you know, you dropped the reference. I didn't think you had time to watch. It took me a while to get
Sunday
through 7
nights.
seasons.
Sunday night. And I'll take you a step further. So, and I'm not crying poor, but we didn't have the money to have HBO because that was a subscription station when the Sopranos started.
Mhm.
I used to walk from Bryan Street in Drexel Hill over to Penn Avenue. Our dear friends Steve and Donna Comley. I would go downstairs, I'd watch the show, and I would walk home. No snacks,
No snacks.
no beverages. Watch
Just-
the show and go home.
Just watch. That's not a watch party. That's just it's a watch
Just a watch.
session. Yeah, just a watch.
You know, there were some times when they wouldn't even invite me in the house.
You had a key.
I was an assistant coach, and I didn't have it. I just didn't have it at that moment in time. And the other thing I think was HBO was a little salty, so my children were young, and I don't think that Judy wanted to have that temptation in the house of
I can hear that. Yeah.
some salty language. But before we go, next week we're going. This is unbelievable. Next week we're going Basketball Hall of Famer again.
Yeah.
And we want to hold back on exactly. You're going to release it on social media later, probably from Bourbon Street.
I might be home by then. Well, I hope
one
I'm
of
home by
those. What are those drinks called? The Hurricanes or something like that?
there might be a few involved that weekend. Yeah.
I would think. But I do want. We had a number of reach outs about the tax credit program that benefits Catholic schools. It's EITC. If you mention it to your money manager, if you mention it to your accountant, if you mention it to whomever is preparing your taxes, if you're giving a couple of $100s to the state, that can go to Catholic schools. If you're giving more, then great. But no amount will be turned away by the blocks people. EITC just did it ourselves here last week. And that was another powerful addition last week.
Yeah, that's the Education Income Tax Credit Program that allows you to defer tax dollars as basically a deduction off of your taxes that will go to a Catholic or private school of your choosing, or a program, whatever it may be. And it doesn't have to just be Catholic. It's any kind of style parochial school or any faith-based organization, private school. It's just giving low-income students an opportunity to get a unique education experience.
Great point.
And listen, I think the one thing that can be said about it is there are a number of things that can be done with your tax dollars. I think having some autonomy over that is a good thing. And obviously, I hope and kind of pray that we continue to fund public education to the fullest degree. And if you want to take it a step further and try and find some small way to influence the way that your tax dollars are used, and as it's furthering education, I don't think that can ever be a bad thing, right?
No question. No question. Well put.
We have a terrific guest next week. We're not going to reveal him just yet. That will be posted. I don't know if it'll give the little geotag, but it could say from New Orleans, Louisiana, from the Make a Difference account next week. But we're going to keep that one under wraps because he's quite a doozy. But if you are following us on social media, you will be able to find that quite easily. We're at Make a Difference Pod on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, at Make a Diff Pod on X. If you want to get in touch with Phil in any way, shape, or form, head on over to pnjmakeadifference.com. That's where you can tell Phil your story to hope to make a difference with Phil in the classroom, on the court, off the court, in the workplace, wherever that may be. That is where Phil has really been his best, giving talks and meeting with groups to see how he can make a difference in professional relationships, personal relationships, philanthropic work, anything he can do. He's just trying to give back, and we hope that you can help him in doing so. We're also on Facebook at Make a Difference with Phil Martelli. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and like this video and subscribe. We would appreciate that as always. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, please, please, please give us a 5-star rating. I promise that helps more people get a hold of our show. For Phil, I'm Jared. One more time.
Go
Go
Birds.
Birds.